You wake up one morning and your body feels like it's made of concrete. Your legs are heavy, your arms don't want to move. You're lying there, eyes open, staring at the ceiling, and the simplest thought crosses your mind. Just get up, just stand. Just walk to the bathroom, and it feels like someone is asking you to climb a mountain. You haven't run a marathon. You haven't done anything physically demanding. In fact, you barely moved yesterday either. But every single part of you feels weighed down, as if gravity decided to double its pull on you and only you. You drag yourself out of bed eventually, and even standing upright feels like an effort. Your shoulders curve forward, your back aches. Your feet feel like they're sinking into the floor. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet voice whispers something worse than the heaviness itself. It says, "What is wrong with you?" Most people would tell you it's just tiredness. You're not sleeping well, you need more rest. Maybe you need vitamins. Maybe you're dehydrated. Maybe you just need to push through it. And that's the answer the world gives to almost everything. Try harder, do more, force yourself. But here's the problem with that answer. You've tried. You slept 8 hours and woken up feeling worse. You've rested for days and the heaviness didn't lift. You forced yourself through routines and felt like you were moving through water the entire time. The tiredness explanation doesn't hold up because this isn't tiredness. Tiredness has a cause and a solution. What you're feeling doesn't respond to rest. It doesn't respond to willpower. And the reason most people never understand it is because they're looking at the wrong system entirely. They're looking at energy like it's a battery. But what's actually happening is something far deeper, far more ancient, and far more deliberate than simple fatigue. Researchers at the University of Tübingen in Germany published a study in the journal Psychosomatic Medicine that changed how scientists think about depression and the body. What they found was that people experiencing major depressive episodes showed measurably reduced motor activity, not because they were choosing to move less, but because the signals from the brain to the muscles were literally slowing down. The motor cortex, the part of your brain responsible for initiating movement, was firing with less intensity. Think about that for a moment. Your brain is not just making you feel sad. It is actively reducing the electrical signals that tell your body to move. It's as if someone turned down the voltage running through your entire system. You're not imagining the heaviness. You're not being dramatic. Your nervous system is genuinely operating at a lower frequency. And this isn't a malfunction. This is your body doing exactly what it was designed to do under a very specific set of emotional conditions. But here's where it gets really interesting. This slowdown doesn't happen randomly. It follows a pattern that psychologists and neuroscientists have traced back through multiple layers of human biology. On the psychological level, depression triggers what's known as psychomotor retardation, a clinical term for the measurable slowing of thought, speech, and physical movement. Your brain begins to process information more slowly. Your reaction times drop. Even your speech patterns change. You talk slower, with longer pauses, in a flatter tone. And this isn't because you've lost intelligence or capability. It's because your brain is reallocating resources. It's pulling energy away from external action and directing it inward, toward a kind of emergency emotional processing. On the chemical level, something equally striking is happening. Your serotonin levels, which regulate mood and also play a crucial role in muscle function and pain perception, begin to drop. When serotonin drops, your pain threshold lowers. Suddenly, normal physical sensations, the weight of your own limbs, the tension in your back, the pressure of sitting, feel amplified. Your body hasn't changed, but your chemical ability to filter out low-level discomfort has been compromised. At the same time, dopamine, the neurotransmitter responsible for motivation, reward, and motor control, starts to decline. And dopamine doesn't just affect your desire to do things. It affects your physical ability to initiate movement. Without adequate dopamine, the simple act of standing up requires more conscious effort. Your muscles respond slower. Your coordination subtly decreases. And this is where the heaviness comes from. It's not metaphorical. It is a direct result of reduced neurochemical activity affecting your motor system. And if you go even deeper into the evolutionary layer, this pattern starts to make a strange kind of sense. In the natural world, when an animal is wounded or threatened beyond its capacity to fight or flee, it enters a state of conservation. It slows down. It retreats. It minimizes movement to preserve energy. And your body, underneath all the complexity of modern life, still runs on that same ancient operating system. Depression, in many ways, is your body entering conservation mode. It has assessed your emotional environment, the stress, the loss, the overwhelm, and it has decided that the safest thing to do is shut down non-essential functions. Movement becomes non-essential. Motivation becomes non-essential. Even your posture collapses inward, as if your body is physically trying to make you smaller, less visible, less exposed to whatever threat it perceives. And if you're watching this right now and something in you is saying yes, that's exactly what it feels like, then you need to stay with this video. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, because what we explore on this channel goes far beyond surface-level advice. Leave a like if this is already making sense to you. And pay close attention to what comes next, because the next piece of this puzzle is the one almost nobody talks about. There was a study published in 2012 by researchers at the University of Granada that found something most people would consider impossible. They measured grip strength in patients with clinical depression and compared it to healthy controls. What they found was that the depressed patients were physically weaker, not because of muscle atrophy, not because they hadn't been exercising, but because their central nervous system was sending diminished signals to the muscles. The muscles themselves were fine, the hardware was intact, but the software, the brain's instructions, had been turned down. Now here's the paradox. You would think that if your body is physically weaker, exercise would make things worse. But the opposite was true. When depressed patients engaged in even mild physical activity, walking, gentle stretching, their motor signaling actually improved. Not because the exercise fixed the depression, but because the movement itself sent feedback signals back to the brain, essentially telling the nervous system that the threat level was lower than it had calculated. The body was using movement as a form of communication with the brain, saying, "We are not in danger, you can restore normal operations. This means the heaviness you feel is not a wall. It's a conversation." Your body is asking a question, are we safe? And movement, even tiny amounts of it, is one way to answer. And I want to pause here for just a brief moment. I know this video is narrated with an AI voice, but behind this content there is a real person. My name is Fernando. I'm deeply grateful that you're here, spending your time watching this. I genuinely hope that you are eternally blessed in everything you pursue. Now, let me take you further into what this means for your daily life. There's another dimension to this heaviness that almost no one addresses, and it involves your muscles directly. Antonio Damasio, the neuroscientist at the University of Southern California, has spent decades studying what he calls somatic markers, the way emotions are literally stored and expressed in the body. According to his research, emotional states don't just live in the brain. They create physical patterns in the body. When you're anxious, your shoulders tighten. When you're afraid, your stomach clenches. And when you're depressed, your entire muscular system enters a low activation state. Your muscles don't just relax, they partially disengage. Your posture slumps, not because you're lazy, but because the neural commands maintaining upright posture are weakened. Your fascia, the connective tissue surrounding your muscles, begins to stiffen in that collapsed position. Over time, this creates a feedback loop. The body stays heavy because the body has physically adapted to heaviness. The posture reinforces the mood. The mood reinforces the posture. And you get trapped in a cycle that feels permanent, but is actually maintained by very specific, very breakable mechanisms. A study from the University of Auckland in 2017 demonstrated this directly. They took participants with mild to moderate depression and simply changed their posture, had them sit upright instead of slumped, and measured the effects. The upright group reported less fatigue, more energy, and a measurably better mood compared to the group that remained in their usual collapsed position. They didn't take medication. They didn't go to therapy. They changed the angle of their spine, and their emotional state shifted, not completely, not permanently, but measurably, because the body is not just responding to the mind. It is informing the mind. Every position you hold, every way you carry yourself, is sending data back to the brain about what emotional state you should be in. And when you're depressed, you've been sending the same data, heavy, collapsed, withdrawn, for so long that the brain has accepted it as the default. But here's where this knowledge becomes power. Once you understand that the heaviness is not a character flaw, not laziness, not something wrong with your soul, Once you see it as a biological pattern, a feedback loop, a system responding to signals, you can start to change those signals. Not with brute force. Not by yelling at yourself to just get up and move, but with precision, small movements, a shift in posture. 5 minutes of walking, not to exercise, but to send a message to your nervous system. A deliberate breath pattern, slow exhale, longer than the inhale, that activates the parasympathetic system and tells your body the emergency is over. These are not motivational tricks. They are neurological interventions. They work because they speak the language your body is actually operating in. Researchers at Harvard Medical School found that even diaphragmatic breathing for 10 minutes a day was enough to measurably reduce cortisol levels and improve vagal tone, the measure of your nervous system's ability to shift from stress mode back to rest and recovery. An improved vagal tone is directly linked to reduced feelings of physical heaviness. Your body becomes more responsive. Your muscles re-engage. The concrete-like sensation starts to soften. Not because you forced it, but because you gave your system the specific input it needed to recalibrate. Now think back to that morning. You're lying in bed. The ceiling is above you. Your body feels impossibly heavy. But this time, you understand something you didn't before. You know that the heaviness is not you failing. It is your nervous system operating in conservation mode. You know that your serotonin levels are affecting how your body perceives its own weight. You know that your dopamine is limiting the signals to your motor cortex. You know that your posture has been feeding the loop. And you know with real evidence-based certainty that this pattern can be interrupted. Not erased in one day. Not fixed with one trick. But shifted gently through inputs your body actually recognizes. You place your feet on the floor. You sit upright. You take one slow breath. And that one small act is not small at all. It is the first signal in a new conversation between your mind and your body. It is you telling your system, I understand what you're doing and I'm ready to come back. You were never broken. You were protecting yourself in the only way your body knew how. And now that you know the pattern, you can begin to write a different one. If this changed how you see what's happening inside your own body, leave a comment and tell me what part hit you the hardest. Hit the like button. It makes a bigger difference than you think. And subscribe if you want to keep exploring the science behind what you feel every single day. Because in the next video, we're going to talk about something even more surprising. Why your brain sometimes creates physical pain that has absolutely no injury behind it, and what that pain is really trying to tell you. You don't want to miss that one.